Welcome to Everything Co-op, bringing you information on how cooperatives can help improve your quality of life. This show is being sponsored by the National Co-op Bank, NCB. The NCB is dedicated to strengthening communities nationwide for the delivery of banking and financial services for the nation's cooperatives, their members, and other socially responsible organizations. For more information on the power of community ownership, visit ncb.coop. That's ncb.coop. Now stay tuned for your host, Vernon Oakes.
Good morning, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes. Everything Co-op is the program, and we talk about the values of cooperative business model, particularly compared to the capitalistic business model. And it's been stated that Americans are in love with capitalism. And that may be true, but I fell in love with co-ops when I found about them about 25 years ago. And this morning we have Marla
Bilonick.
It's close, yeah. And Karina Mendoza in the studio with us this morning. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
How are you guys doing today?
Thanks so much for having us. We're doing great. Thank you.
Okay. No, thank you for coming in this morning. Thank you for all of the work that you do. And that's what we want to find out. What do you do? What is the Latino Economic Development Center?
So I'll start, and Karina can jump in with anything she might want to add. LEDC, that's sort of our acronym that we go by, and most people recognize us by that name. We have been around for 27 years. We were founded in Mount Pleasant in Washington, D.C., but now have actually 5 offices in the region. So we're headquartered in D.C. with 2 offices in Maryland, one just down the street in Wheaton, Maryland, one in Baltimore, Maryland, one in Arlington, Virginia, and one in Herndon, Virginia. And then, as I said, our headquarters in D.C. And we are working to help Latinos and other underserved communities to build assets as a way.
Well, I'm sorry. What's asset? Build assets.
Yes.
Build assets.
So ownership to improve their financial position and that of their families. And so really the 2 areas of focus that we have are housing and home ownership and small business ownership. So the division of labor here today is going to be myself talking about the work that we do on the housing side, particularly with co-ops in Washington, D.C., and Karina is going to be talking about the small business side.
Okay. So, Marla, you're housing and Karina is small business.
Correct.
Yes. Well, I'll say that with a disclaimer that I'm the executive director, so I'm actually not on the front lines, and I'm very envious and admiring of my staff that are out sort of in the trenches doing the day-to-day work. But I am speaking about our housing work today.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got to know about all of it.
Yes.
Executive director.
Well, thanks.
Okay. Marla. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So housing and small business, but you want to build assets.
Yes.
You want folks to build assets.
Yes. So our idea is that the racial and ethnic race divide in terms of wealth is partially due to the inability for our communities to build assets. And so this sort of bleeds into generational poverty because, you know, there are other groups that have been building assets for a long time, can pass down homes, can pass down businesses.
All right, you're talking about white people.
Well, sure, yeah.
All right, let's talk about it. Let's get straight here. Okay. So white folks in America.
Yes. So this
in
is
Europe, they've been getting assets and holding on to them and passing them down from generation to generation.
Which gives a leg up to the next generation. And so we're looking to break that cycle.
No, y'all don't have it, okay? We black people and Latino, we don't have it because we don't want to work and we're lazy.
No.
Boss.
No.
No, well, come on. Let's be straight here. We're lazy. We don't go to school.
No, there are systemic reasons. And part of it is information, and that's really a part of what we do is connect our clients to information around how to go about building assets. But we also have other products. I would be remiss to not mention that we're a community development financial institution. So we also provide loans for individuals who are looking to start or grow businesses. And we also have some consumer products to help people build credit.
So you're a CDFI?
We are a CDFI.
Oh, fantastic. So
and I love that you use that acronym because there are many people who sort of scratch their head when you throw out CDFI. So I mean, I would expect nothing less from you, but it's awesome either way.
Yes. Okay.
And then my role as a small business technical assistance provider is helping and working one-on-one with these clients that walk into our office and helping them develop their business plan, helping them with the licensure and permits either in D.C., in Maryland, and Baltimore, and making sure to empower them and really prepare them to be able to apply to these small business loans, and therefore build and develop their businesses so that way they are able then to create jobs to the community. And in fact, many of our clients are actually job creators for their communities and their families.
You know, I'm glad you brought up the information, learning, training. Mm-hmm. And I know you know, and everybody out there, I was joking because too often white folks believe that blacks and Hispanics are poor for our own fault. It's our fault that we don't have assets. It's our fault. And they don't look at discrimination, slavery, all of the different things that have come out of that from not having information or starting off in debt.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
When my father passed, he left me $2,000 of debt. Okay, a debt.
Right.
Not an asset. And when I had friends, mostly white, but some black, who when their parents give them the down payment for their home or buy them their car, that's such a great step up. And it doesn't have to necessarily be a trust fund, but some of them had trust funds. And so when you end up with that, you talk about a leg up. It's 2 legs, 5 legs, 10 legs up. And compared to that single mom, whether it's Latino or African American or Asian American or anybody, even whites, there's more poor white folk than black, but people don't want to get that. Too often. The media doesn't want to get it. So I grew up in Bluefield, West Virginia. So on our mountaintop, we were all poor.
Right.
Okay, and it was white and black. We didn't have Hispanics. We didn't have Asians. We didn't have Native Americans, except for those of us that have Native Americans as part of our mix. And we were all poor, and it was not because of folks lazy. Both of our parents worked. And most of the people up there is working poor. They don't know how to manage money. So I'm glad we get this training in. That's okay. All right.
Great.
We'll preach here. Okay. So which one you want to talk about, housing or small business first? And in particular with co-ops, what are you doing?
Well, I can hop in on housing. So Washington, D.C. has a very strong model law, which is the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act, which everyone refers to as TOPA. And this law went into place in the 70s. It's a 38-year-old law that has been really a way to preserve affordable housing in the district. So I jotted down before we met that our in D.C., the median price of a home is $559,000. Now, that's the median. So, of course, there are outliers in price on either end of the spectrum. But, that's a really inaccessible price point for most people who are coming at the home purchase process. And so, and also I'll note that in D.C., of course, and I'm not stating anything other than the obvious, but housing stock period is very limited, and then narrow that down even further to affordable housing. So the role that LEDC takes with regard to TOPA is first around this education piece that you mentioned. So we're informing people of their rights, ideally before their building is even close to going up for sale. So we want all of the residents in DC, and we share this burden or privilege with other organizations that are doing similar work, but we want all residents that are renters in DC to know that if their building goes for sale, they have the right of first refusal. And we want them to know that way ahead of time, because what happens is when a building goes up for sale, there are a lot of interests at play and people who come in. And this is an opportunity for sharks, for lack of a better way of putting it, coming in and offering what can seem like a tantalizing payout, which in the short term would be very attractive. However, this is a real opportunity. And again, this is very rare. This type of program does not exist in other metropolitan areas in the United States. if tenants can form an association, they can go ahead and purchase the building themselves. And this not only builds an asset for them and their families, but it maintains affordable housing, because typically when a private developer comes in and purchases a building that is affordable rental units, they are going to transform it into something that is, not necessarily affordable, typically for smaller dwellings. So, we're talking about the studios or the one bedroom apartments that are not really built for families. And so, the role that we take is first informing people of their rights. Second, if and when their building goes up for sale, jumping in and informing people of sort of what their options are, helping them troubleshoot that process. And then we actually help folks form an association, respond to the offer of sale letter, and get in there and buy that building. So we typically work with about 70 buildings a year.
70.
Yep.
Wonderful. Okay, now listen, let's go all the way back.
Yeah. I know I sort of rambled on and on. Yes.
TOPA is the law Marion Barry helped to put in ages ago. Okay. And that helps the tenant to buy their units, their
building collectively as a co-op, which is why we're here today with
okay.
you. Yeah.
So what's the first thing a tenant should do when they hear that their building is up? What do you recommend the first thing they should do?
They should gather with their fellow tenants. And this is really a challenging part, and this is where our role comes in, because if you think about a building in D.C., you can have multi-languages, people who are working very hard may not necessarily already have a built-in relationship, and now we're asking them to come together and make a pretty major financial investment and commitment together. And so the idea is for them to get together, form an association, develop the leadership structure of that association. So, typically just like any other board, there are officers. So there'll be a president, a treasurer, and so our role is to facilitate that process.
See, Marla, I'm way back. I'm right. Way back to the. All right, I'm a tenant.
Yes.
And I hear my buildings go up. It's a 50-unit building.
Yeah.
In Mount Pleasant or in Southeast D.C.
Right, sure.
It's 50 units, and they want $50,000 a unit, whatever, at $2.5 million sale.
Right.
Okay, and that's a huge number.
Yes.
So the first thing I should do is try to organize the tenants.
Well,
what would I do?
So my thought is that yes, you do want to get together with your fellow tenants.
But my thought is they call you.
Oh, yeah, call us.
Okay,
sure, absolutely. Yes, I could not understand what you were getting at.
Okay.
Yes, call us, please.
Organizing the tenants is difficult, and they need help in doing that.
Agreed. Thank you.
Okay.
But we ideally will have already gotten to your building, flyered your building, so yes, you would have our contact information and know where to turn.
Okay, so you will get the information that's up for sale, and then...
Yes. So the Department of Housing and Community Development actually publishes a list that we have access to of all the buildings that are going up for sale. And we, go to those buildings and flyer there so that folks are aware of what's happening.
Okay. So Department of Housing and Community Development,
yes.
DHCD,
yep.
sends you out a list of all houses that have been sold, and then you will...
All that are up for sale, yes.
Up for sale.
Yeah. And then we'll reach out to the tenants. We'll physically go to the buildings. We knock on doors. If people don't respond, we'll slip a flyer under their door.
So you're proactive.
We're very proactive.
Because they only have 45 days to form a tenant association.
Yes.
That's the first thing that they have to do.
Right. They have 45 days to respond to the offer of sale.
Okay. How long do they have to form the tenant association?
Well, between the offer of sale letter and those 45 days. So the sooner the better.
Okay. Listen, we've got to take our first break. If anybody out there would like to call, you can call 1-800-450-7876 with a question or comment. We'll be right back.
Washington, D.C.'s News Talk, 1450 AM WOF and 95.9 FM.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes. The program is Everything Cooperative, and we're talking cooperatively here today with Marla and Karina, talking from the Latino Economic Development Center, LEDC, talking about housing, forming cooperatives and tenants getting ownership, and we're talking about small businesses. The whole intent is to get people to create assets assets are those things that you own, if you own it, and then you can grow it and grow it and grow it. And if you, too often, people in underserved communities, marginalized communities, they don't have assets, they have liabilities, and that's what you owe. And too often we owe more than we own. And Latino Economic Development Center is trying to change that formula around where you own more than you owe. Did I say it right?
Exactly. You said it perfectly.
Okay. All right. So we're talking about housing right now and the steps that you go through. And TOPA is an awesome tool to create wealth, okay, to create the asset. So if you find your building is being sold, the first thing you want to do is call Latino Economic Development Center. What number would they call?
So our main line is 202-588-5102. Again, that's 202-588-5102. And you can also check out our website, which is www.ledcmetro, and that's all one word, .org. Again, that's www.ledcmetro.org.
So you can call them to get help. They can help you formalize, get the information you need so you can start your tenant association and start the process of buying and owning that building. Okay.
Yeah. One other thing I wanted to just note is that part of our role as facilitators is we bring other resources to the table. So we also bring pro bono legal representation through partners that we work with. Some are, hugely successful and well-known law firms in the city that are offering their support. We also bring in project financing through partners as well. And so that is part of the process that we'll bring people through, is not just solely, I just want to make it clear that it's not solely that you form the association and then you have to sort of find a way to come up with legal representation and financing. That's part of what we are bringing to bear through our partnerships.
What about developers? Renovators, the people that will come in and if they need to fix a roof or something that are...
So whatever. That piece is not part of our service offering, but that's actually something that we're working on, actually connecting our small business side to, because we do have a lot of contractors that work in that space. So we would love to connect the dots between our programs in that way.
But what about, you don't work with MANA or Mikasa? Or
we do, yes. So Mikasa is a major partner of ours. Actually, their executive director is on our board, Fernando Lemos. Yeah. And so, yes, we are also working with developers. The other thing I wanted to mention, too, is that we also view it as success. The ultimate success is for a building to be purchased by the tenants. But we also have utilized this process to just give tenants a greater voice. And so even if they do decide that they want an external party to purchase their building, we've used this process to form the association so that the association has a voice to say, make demands around maintaining rent levels, around making repairs to the building, conditions issues. So, that's sort of another part of it, is that, this collective effort is not for naught, even if they decide, and they may decide that they are not going to go ahead and purchase their building.
Well, what I do for a living is I manage buildings.
Right.
And I found out about co-ops by managing housing co-ops. And I've fallen in love with the model because it does help people to create wealth.
Absolutely.
And not only wealth from a standpoint of dollars and cents, but wealth in terms of knowledge. Because the fifth principle of cooperatives is training, education, and information. And getting people trained up on how to work together and how to make informed decisions is awesome.
Absolutely.
And I've watched people increase their own self-worth.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that's what's phenomenal.
Yeah. I think there's also an immeasurable element of like what gets passed down from generations, not just the physical asset, but the knowledge, as you said, and also just sort of this I don't want to say habit. I don't know if that's the right way to say, but it's like the developing of a practice that then also gets passed down from one generation to another. So a practice of home ownership or small business ownership I think there's something to that being passed down along with the asset itself.
Yeah, it's bigger, and I'm glad you brought it up. I have not even been thinking, but I've been thinking about the individual, that what they get or that family, but not generational. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool.
Cool. So let me ask you now, Marla and Karina, do you like what you do?
Yes.
Yes.
Karina, you're brighten up over there.
Yes, I there's not a day where I don't wake up saying, "Sweet baby Jesus, thank you for my job." I am a transplant from Los Angeles, California, and every day, and so my own perspective of what Latino means and what a member of a minority community means, and a daughter of immigrants, I am able to assist everyday people of color walking in, wanting to start a business. And it's starting a business not because it's their passion, not necessarily because it's their passion or they want to be the next Martha Stewart or whatever, but it's because they need this business to get economically up the structure ladder. So they need, it's entrepreneurship out of necessity to live and to survive. And in the process, they teach their family, they provide and create great role models for their family members and also for the community. Because what ends up happening is that for every entrepreneur that starts a business, within 6 months, they end up creating 1 to 4 jobs. And that's the kind of job creation that we don't hear. And especially in this era of anti-immigration, what we're finding and what we're really doing is basically showing the actual narrative, which is immigrants as job creators.
Yeah, I started my property management business in 1993. And somewhere around 2000, a good friend of mine told me the best gift you can give somebody is a job.
Yeah.
And I had never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
The best is it creating, you say 3 to 4 jobs? 1 to 4 jobs.
Yes, within months of starting their business. And time again, I'm finding that our clients are just hungry for information and for knowledge on how to do everything legally and right, so that way they could just move on and really develop their business. Time and time again, I'm constantly building a partnership with the Department of Health, with DCRA, with OSSE, which is the Office of State Superintendent Education in DC for childcare providers. And time again, these government organizations are just blown away that our classrooms are filled to the limit with participants, with clients, because clients will drop everything to come to our workshops to get accurate information in their language.
In their language?
Yes. All the services that we offer are bilingual. And so it's either English or Spanish, and we also have limited funding to be able to bring translators. And the housing department does have the software, the headsets for translators.
Yes, we typically in our tenant meetings and sometimes our small business trainings have multilingual translation going on. So we'll have someone representing or speaking Amharic, I should say, and folks speaking in Spanish, or the training will be delivered in Spanish with English headsets for folks who don't speak Spanish.
And what's the other language you said?
Amharic, which is primarily Ethiopian language.
Okay. Yeah, I knew what it was. I just wanted to make sure everybody else out there.
Okay.
Amharic, you don't hear it often like
That's right.
Spanish or French or German or those other languages. And there's a lot of Ethiopians here.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And yes.
I managed one building. It must have had 8 different languages, and most of them were African languages.
Wow.
In first generation.
Yes.
It's phenomenal what you get in D.C. in terms of the beautiful cultures.
Yes, agreed.
And we're working hard on preserving them and making sure that these longstanding community members and entrepreneurs stay in D.C. and thrive when D.C. is thriving.
At $559,000 per house, the median house sale, that gets to be really tough in D.C.
Yep.
Yeah. So, tenant comes to you, and go back to this one again, and we'll come back. All right, we only have 1 minute, but we'll after the break. We'll come back, and I want to talk about the other steps after you form the tenant association. What are the steps that you do? And I've been through this process several times as my owning or managing something. And so it can be a very tedious process, and people have got to go through it and follow it. Great way of creating wealth. And we'll come back and talk. I want to get some examples of some of the businesses you've helped to start. Okay? We'll be right back. Please don't touch that dial.
Washington, D.C.'s News Talk, 1450 AM WOF and 95.9 FM.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes. The program is Everything Cooperative. Talk about the benefits of co-ops, and the National Cooperative Bank sponsors this program so that you can get the information to either help start a business or to look for a co-op, either housing co-op, credit union. You look for REI has moved into town. It's a co-op. So you look for a co-op, and you can buy their products or help support them. The mission of NCB is to support and be an advocate for America's cooperatives and their members, especially in low-income communities, by providing innovative financial and related services. And they've been doing that since the 80s, and they do a great job of it. So today we're talking with Marla and Karina from the Latino Economic Development Center, and they work with and help everybody or anybody in marginal communities to create wealth. Money, money, money. Yeah. So we said we're going to come back and talk about this process, of TOPA process. We talked earlier that you form a tenant association as tenants coming together and forming this association. And then what's the steps after that?
So after 45 days, the association must respond with an offer. And then there's a next period of 120 days for negotiation with the landlord.
With the owner?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, apologies. And so that process, is really similar to any home sale for folks listening who have gone in with an offer, and then you go back and forth with the seller on, many different elements of the sale. It could be price. It could be, other elements that you're trying to loop into the contract. So it could be, fixing something or what have you. And so we also facilitate that process.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get a tenant association. They go negotiate in 45 days. They create this tenant association. Then 120 days, they have to create
to negotiate.
And then what do they have to do? How long before they have to purchase it?
I'm not sure of the exact timing between then and when they have to purchase it, but typically assuming that their negotiation, comes to closure with all parties agreeing, then the sale is made. My
recollection is 6 months.
Okay.
And what can happen, as long as the tenants are making progress, they can go back and ask for another 6 months.
Right.
And so they have basically up into a year, extended period. But I've also found out that if tenants are really doing what they are expected to do, they can even ask for extensions beyond that.
Yeah, and I will definitely say that these engagements are not like an overnight experience for anyone involved. So, the successes that we have every year are not typically buildings that we started working with that year. It's typically buildings that we've been working with over an extended period of time.
So you get the seller, if they really want to sell, they get frustrated that it takes so long.
Yes.
And sometimes the residents, the tenants get frustrated because it takes so long.
Yes.
But it takes a long period of time. And I tell tenants, look, it takes a long time, but you end up with an asset.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You end up with value.
Yeah. Although you bring something up, so this bill or law, I should say, has been in effect for, almost 40 years. But, and it's a miracle truly that it has stayed on for so long, given the other interests at play in a quickly developing city like DC. But this year is the first year that there's actually been a rollback to TOPA, and that is as it applies to single family homes. So single family homes are now not going to be subject to TOPA.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a little bit worrisome, just in the sense that, well, first of all, for many, residents, their renting of a single family home is how they maintain affordable housing for themselves and their family. And then secondly, I think it poses a symbolic, shift that we're definitely keeping our eye on.
See, I've never even dealt with the single family home. I've only dealt with the multifamily home side, so I've not even done that.
Yeah. And we, our tenant organizers are very active in terms of advocating. They spend a lot of time at the Wilson Building. That's, sort of part of their role, just is preserving this incredible asset that, speaking of assets, this is an intangible asset that the city brings to bear that we really want to protect.
Well, 559,000, is that the number you said? Yeah, the average home. And that keeps going up.
Yep.
There's no sense that that's going to be going down or
slow
anything
down
like
in
that.
sight.
Quick story, Mount Pleasant. When I first got here in 1986, I tried to buy a 55-unit property right in the center of Mount Pleasant with mostly Latino tenants. And I don't remember the price, but it was like $500,000 or something.
For the building.
For the building.
Wow.
Yeah, it was something, and it was it was foreclosure deal. The bank had taken it back, and they told me if I could come up with 10 or 20%, then they would finance the balance, and I couldn't come up with that. It got away.
Right.
And it's I saw that for sale, 5 years ago it was $2 million, $3 million, $4 million. It was
painful.
Crazy. Yeah. That's the big one that got away.
Right.
The big fish that got away. But that's the sense of the values that have gone up like so much in a short period of time, and they're going to keep going up. It's the way it looks.
Yep. There's no end in sight from what I can see.
So we really have to keep some houses affordable. So why do you make them co-ops?
I'm not sure. I mean, I've never really thought about that. I mean, I think it's certainly more accessible from a price point of view, to have multiple folks along with financiers coming together to make the deal happen. But, that is the structure of how TOPA is put together. And I think from a mission standpoint, it's definitely aligned with what we believe in terms of, community members supporting one another and sort of being part of a collective effort rather than being, sort of a standalone.
Exactly. And I think the larger question is why not go co-op? And I think time and time again, I think living in our current capitalist economy, we're always taught to think about the individual, trust nobody, help yourself before you help somebody else. However, time and time again, traditions from our cultures and also how, I hate to say this, how poor people survive is community. Either our family as supporters or our neighbors as supporters, helping out with daycare, helping out bartering, giving somebody a lunch for them fixing your car or fixing your roof, help hiring the next door neighbor's son to help with the lawn and stuff like that. And what we're finding is that the chain is as strong as the weakest link. So if we can strengthen each other up, we will support each other. And so we're definitely stronger together. And I think with the co-ops, with the TOPAs and housing, if your neighbors stand together, then everybody can work to maintain affordable housing, not only in your building, but ideally in your block and in your neighborhood. And in fact, one of our our chair board member, Sylvia Salazar, was one of the tenant organizers in 2011 to help organize her building in Norwood neighborhood. And she's now one of our leaders or advisors in the child care co-op that she's assisting 11 Latinas and Latinos form a small business for bilingual child care center.
So I think you got that's the answer that I would give to that question of why co-ops is this whole center of community, whole center of community, and the ethical values of co-ops are honesty, openness, social responsibility, and caring for one another. And that caring for one another is sort of at the center of co-ops. And the hill that I grew up in Bluefield, West Virginia, everybody helped everybody, and we were an extended family. And that's what I'm hearing you saying. And when you go to community and poor people, and also I don't really like that term because we didn't know we were poor. There was no sense of poor. It was a sense that we all worked together. We didn't have as much as maybe the next neighborhood, but we clearly were rich in family, rich in culture, rich.
Thank you for that.
In traditions. So communities bring a lot.
Yes.
Okay. There's a term called Ubuntu, Ubuntu. And I've gotten that for me, it means what the center of cooperative is. Ubuntu is a Southern African term or way of being. And it is, I am because you are. And you are because I am. As opposed to I think that I am, or this stuff that other cultures believe in. But for most of us, it is I am because you are, and you are. This is a community, and so we look out for each other. And Mandela did not hurt his jailers because he knew if he hurt them, he was hurting himself. And so this to me is the center of what cooperative is. And it goes, the values and the principles of co-ops go back to 1844 in a city right outside of the UK. But I think it goes way, as a matter of fact, I was in Puerto Rico and a conference, and the guy said he went to Peru in in the 1400s. So I think it goes all the way back. As a matter of fact, I think that's the center of humanity is working together, caring for each other.
It's a very natural construct. Yeah.
And I kind of also want to say that it's also part of American history with Eleanor and Theodore Roosevelt, and especially with them making sure that workers have decent housing and access to nature and access to a quality life, even if they are lower, quote unquote, lower income. Everybody has access to that, and even the city of Greenbelt was started based on those values. And so I really love to think of co-ops as being part of not only American history, but part of Maryland and DC history, because it does have that trace.
Greenbelt had 7 co-ops in it, 1,600 unit housing co-op, and they have an incubator, and they're created. They had 7 4 years ago. They were in the program the first month, 4.5 years ago. Had some people from Greenbelt.
Yeah.
So they may have more than 7 now. So let's talk about, give us some examples of businesses that you've helped to start. Are they co-ops?
Right now, I'm working with one co-op, workers co-op, and some of the other businesses that I helped start or provided assistance have been either family businesses or individual businesses. But I think that the Co-Familia Bilingual Childcare Cooperative has been the most eye-opening experience for me, just because I'm the most cynical person.
No, you're cynical? What's the name of it?
It's called the Co-Familia Bilingual Childcare Co-op.
Co-Familia.
Yes.
Bilingual family.
A child care co-op. And the heart of it is in Logan Square, D.C.
And what's Co-Familia?
That is the name. Basically, just Co-Familia, meaning we're all the family.
It's community we were just talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
We're all in the family.
Yes, because it's all women Latinas who live in the area surrounding the Looster Place Memorial Church. And I think they have been long-standing D.C. residents. Okay,
we have to take our next break, and this is our final. Yeah, this is our final break. This is going back too quick. I need another hour of you ladies. We're going to take our final break, and then we'll be right back. If you have any questions, you can call in at 1-800-450-7876. We'll be right back.
Washington, D.C.'s News Talk, 1450 AM WOF and 95.9 FM.
Information is power, and this is why the National Co-op Bank is sponsoring this program to give you information about co-ops, and this is why WOL is a great partner. But information is stored power. It only becomes powerful when you use it. You got to have sort of like a gallon of gasoline. You have the stored power, but you got to strike it with something in order to get the power out of it. So we're hoping that you will go to the Latino Economic Development Center's webpage, LEDC
metro.org.
LEDCmetro.org. Or you can call them at 202-588-5102 if you want to start a business or if you want to buy your building. They could get you help. They also have a LEDC, a CDFI, so they can loan you money. And I went to their webpage, and they said you can get up to $50,000.
That is correct.
I'd say wonderful, $50,000. Okay. Can I get 50,000 times 10? Okay, so there's 4 different types of co-ops, and we were talking about a couple of them earlier. If the employees own the business, own and control the business, then it's called a worker cooperative. And the child care center look like it's going to be a worker-owned cooperative. The people that work there are going to own it.
Correct.
If it's owned by the people that uses the products or services, it's called a consumer. The consumers are the one that owns and controls it. It's a consumer cooperative. And we get that with credit unions. The housing co-ops are consumer-owned because the people that live there are using the products or services. There's a health clinic in Madison, Wisconsin that's owned by the patients. It's a consumer-owned cooperative. It's patient-centric. And then the other 2 types are if you come together to purchase things, it's a purchasing co-op. And the reason that they really work is because the people that work there get the skill sets and working with vendors and creating contracts. And so the members get a better price, a better product normally at a lower price. And right here so farmers are the ones that use that a lot. Artists are beginning to use that cooperative. But there's one in the district, Community Purchasing Alliance. And if you ladies don't know about that one, you may want to look them up. They come together for mainly churches, nonprofits, charter schools. Some of the co-ops I manage are beginning to buy products from them. Trash collection, the churches were paying 2-3 times more than what they ought to have. Utilities, solar panels. I bought my copier through them, and I was so glad that the contract was they had changed. Every time I was going through it, saying, no, I don't want this. And then they said, oh, well, you with CPA, so we have a different contract, so give me theirs. And they had already negotiated everything that I would have had to negotiate.
That's great.
So that's on the purchasing side. And then on the marketing side, for selling of the products and services, you have marketing co-ops that people come together again to get more markets and normally a better price for their goods. Farmers, a lot, have done it. And you see that the Creamery, Ocean Spray, Land O'Lakes are different marketing co-ops. Ace Hardware is probably both a purchasing and a marketing co-op. I know they're purchasing. So you get different ways of coming together. It's all about coming together, creating community to benefit the community. In a lot of civil rights and women's rights and Latino rights, folks that have been marginalized have used co-ops to get power.
Correct.
And accomplish things. All through the civil rights movement, if it wasn't for co-ops, the civil rights movement either would not have happened or not happened as well as it did or as successful as it did. But everybody you can think of in the civil rights movement were involved with co-ops in some kind of way. And going back to Frederick Douglass in the 1850s. So that's the 4 different types of co-ops. So you started telling us about the Latinas.
Oh, yes, the Cofamilia Bilingual Child Care Co-op. And these longstanding, about 11 longstanding D.C. minority residents in D.C. who, for the past, basically all their lives in D.C., have been working multiple jobs just to make ends meet, and they decided that enough is enough, and they want to just form a group and start a co-op. And particularly, they were coming across the social issues, the current big problem in D.C., which is the rising cost of living and also the horrendous rising cost of commercial leasing, where as a small business coach, I'm seeing that any business owners can have anywhere from $2,000 to $9,000 a month rent on their space. And so, and also, and particularly in DC, we're having increasing regulations on child care providers, on how much education they need and certain certifications and so forth. And so the women kind of came together to put their strengths in one pod and developed this business model for everybody to be part of the business, share the responsibilities and the profit, while at the same time kind of turning their weaknesses into strengths as a group.
Mm-hmm. Phenomenal. And, this is a great place. The 6th principle for co-op is cooperation among cooperatives.
Exactly.
That if you can find a space in a housing co-op that may not be used, that could be used for the child care center.
Exactly.
It would be awesome.
And we're having a lot of neighborhood churches offering space for potential daycare space. And we also have a lot of different organizations in DC who have experience with cooperatives offering advice and assistance as the women lay the foundation of this great endeavor.
There's a book out you may want to read. It's called Communities Building Wealth. The Democratic Collaborative they're right out at University of Maryland. You can get it online free. But there's a young Mexican American woman in there that they talk about her in New York. Her salary went from $7 to $20 an hour when she joined a cleaning cooperative. So it's like any kind of co-op. And you get the increases because the profit that somebody else was getting off of you're getting. Mm-hmm. And then also, lo and behold, when workers own the business, they figure out how they can do it better. The efficiencies go up. So with the efficiencies up and the sharing the profits, she got a 3-fold increase in income.
Exactly. And also, these residents have collectively have over 35 years of experience in childcare. And so I think that is definitely a strength for them. And it's also just an amazing role model and tail-raising movement that they're doing for their families and for their communities, saying you too cannot work like 3 zillion jobs, but can actually be a member of own a business.
So the reason I brought up Christina, what she decided to do was work less hours and spend time with her 2 kids.
Yeah.
And make more money.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Sounds
So
like
now-
a sweet deal. Yeah.
It's win, 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 win,
Yeah,
win,
absolutely.
win, win.
Definitely.
The new
So-
disruptor.
I know that's why y'all smile when you say, do you like your work? Because when you can help people do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's another one? That's the ladies working together. What's another business you help with?
Gosh, where do I even start? I think currently right now I'm also working with longstanding businesses on Georgia Avenue and Columbia Road. Both corridors have basically are undergoing a lot of transition, and with the changing demographics, these longstanding businesses are struggling to kind of maintain their business model. Mm-hmm. And so two of them, one of them is Johnny Flores on the corner of Georgia Avenue and Florida. He is a Vietnam War vet and has been in business for at least 25 years. And when he first started, he hired all DC minority businesses, all DC minority residents who, unfortunately, over the past 10 years have been pushed out to the suburbs of Maryland and Virginia. And so we've been able to not only provide 20 hours of professional consultation through the LEDC pro-business program, but we were also able to offer technical assistance for him to apply to the DC Great Streets Grant. And so that is an economic initiative within DC that basically provides a $50,000, up to a $50,000 grant for brick and mortars in the DC area. And unfortunately, a lot of the longstanding minority businesses, for various reasons, have a harder time accessing that grant, and because of technology, because of...
So I'm sorry to cut you, but we only have 1 minute left, and I'd just like to know what last words would you like to tell people out there, besides call you?
I would just say that cooperatives, this conversation has really brought to light for me that cooperatives really are just a natural extension of our communities. And so, wherever an organization like LEDC or otherwise can just sort of be the catalyst or impulse to bring that together, it's sort of our natural state.
And we're stronger together. We are definitely stronger together.
Stronger together, everybody. We'll see you next Thursday. And I would say in this week, please live and work cooperatively. We're stronger together.
Washington, D.C.'s News Talk, 1450 AM WO and 95.9 FM.